All right, so hello everybody. I am Stephanie Massengale and I live in the Chapel Hill area, and I am a psychic and a medium, and I also channel Aria of the Arcturian Protectorate. A couple of you are new, but a lot of you already know me or have had a relationship with me for a long span of time. But there will be people who are new to the recording, and I just wanted to thank everyone, Susan Hunter and all of Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship, for inviting me to be here today and talk about the Ascension process and where we are headed as a species collectively. And so for me, this all started back in about 2006 when I almost died from celiac. And at that time, I was teaching 3- and 4-year-old nonverbal autistic children. And I had a little boy in that class that came in, and he did not talk at all. And he started talking to me in full telepathic sentences that I could feel the words in my head. And he would say things like, "I do not understand this talking thing. Can you explain it to me? I just do not get that." And so I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And I had gone an extended period of time without oxygen after my celiac experience. And I did not have any iron or B12 or vitamin D or folate in my body of any kind at all. And so there was something about going that extended period of time without oxygen that seemed to jumpstart my psychic abilities. Now, I'd had a lot of psychic abilities in childhood, and when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I was in a boating accident, and the boating accident led to a coma. I was in a medically induced coma that was a couple of months that I was in this coma. So when I channel Aria and she says, well, I come over the pathway and Stephanie had the right pathway, it's because a part of my brain is still in the coma and it never woke up. So if you look at a person's delta brainwave state, it's normally around 5 to 7%, that meditative kind of state. Well, my waking normal delta brainwave state is 28%. And when I channel Aria, it's 48% of my brain. So I have a different reaction to the universe than most people do, right? So I just have a different way of connecting at a deeper level. Just like you can have a dog whistle be blown and dogs can hear the dog whistle, I have a connection in a wider amount of range in my experience with beings from other realms. And this is why I'm able to channel Aria. It's why Esther Hicks can channel Abraham. And if you've seen Steve Rogat channel, some of you that are here locally, then you know how that goes for someone that has that ability to bring the information through. And I've always just, from the time that I first met Aria, I have been able to channel really easily and get into state. So channeling is something that the prophets did in times of old, right? So, you know, Moses would go up on the mountain and he'd bring down the message to the people, right? And he would merge with God's source energy or the angels and he would deliver the message, right? So today we call that channeling. It's where I merge my consciousness with a loving type of being, whether that's an extraterrestrial being or interdimensional being, or whether that's an angel like Archangel Michael. And then I am the mouthpiece. I am a conscious channel mostly, but I would say that as the years have gone along, I've become a much more unconscious channel than I was before. And I don't really remember it the way I used to remember it. And so when a person is channeling, you usually will have a change in the vocal register, a change in how they sound. Like this is me as Stephanie, but when I channel Aria, she's got this British South African accent going on. And that's because I'm holding the energy of my own spirit, right? And I'm channeling through the energy from her. And so having those two different vocal registers makes that the sound be different when you do it. So Edgar Casey, of course, is someone that we're familiar with who was a very unconscious channel. These days, most channels are a more conscious variety. Sometimes they don't get up and walk around. Now, today I have to kind of stay here because you all need to see me, but normally I can get up and walk around with Aria. And that's called trans channeling, where I'm able to get up and walk around and move, right? So since we've already had the delay, if you want to know more about me, you can always just check it out later on the website. We're just going to bring in Aria, and at the end, she will do her farewell that a lot of you are familiar with. So are we ready for Aria? We're just going to go straight into it. And like, not even, oh, she wants me to do the big thing. All right, Matt, take my bracelets. Matthew gets my bracelets. All right, everybody. So here we go. We're going to set space. So if you're seeing this now or on the recording, you are going to like this a lot. All right, so this time we ask that the information that comes through in everyone's best and highest joy and best and highest everything for the Ascension process. We ask the information comes through the highest rates of vibration possible, through the white light source of God energy, through the ascended masters, through everyone's specific councils. We also ask that Arya, A-R-Y-A, is the being with whom we will be channeling today. And with that, we will open the door. I've done that. I intend Arya. All right, everybody. This is Arya, the Octurian Protectorate, also the Council of 12, as well as I'm very well associated with Ashtar Command. So hello to everyone that has managed to make it on the call, and look at all of you that are ready to have a discussion with Arya about where we are headed, where we have been, and all of the loveliness that is yet to happen and transpire. Now, to make this more comfortable for her and everyone else, I'm going to kick off her shoes, which are going to make her happy, and I'm actually going to crisscross on this little stool. Now, you would not think that's even possible, but I'm trying to make a point here, which is the ascension process is a very, very sneaky thing. So here I am trying to sit on this little teeny tiny stool, but I managed to make it happen, right? And that's what it's like with ascension. It's a very narrow pathway, and a lot of people are going to be confused by it, and they're not going to understand exactly what's happening. So for those of you that are going through the ascension process, and if you are watching Arya right now on this video, then by gosh, you are here for the process of ascension. We've got 5 different pathways for ascension. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it does not matter the speed or the rate at which you are ascending. It is a gradual transformation, like a butterfly, caterpillar to the butterfly, that sort of a thing. So we have 2 staircases, 2 escalators, and the elevator way to ascension, right? So for those of you that have had near-death experiences, after that near-death experience, for a lot of you, what happened is that you took the elevator process of ascension. You had all kinds of sudden ascension symptoms, and life changed, and all of a sudden you were remembering dreams, and you could pick up spirits you couldn't explain, and you didn't know who they were before, and things of that nature. And sometimes you see a big shift in a person's character when they have taken the elevator trip to ascension, right? And so Stephanie's one of those. She has had 3 major near-death experiences in her life and been in a coma to boot. So that really kind of gave her the fast elevator route to go. Now, that is a good way to do it, but it is not the easiest way to do it. So we also have escalators, right? So the next slower way to do it is that you're going pretty quickly on the escalator. You're at South Point Mall, and you get your little feet on the bottom, and you're going up the escalator, right? And that's not as bad, you know. I've got time to think about it, but not a whole lot before, oh, I'm at the top now, I've got to get off the escalator, right? Now, for those of you that's too fast, imagine you are at the airport, and you've ever stood on those really slow escalators, and the people can even walk past you faster, right? Well, some of you are on that way of ascending, that you're on the escalator and you're being moved along by God's souls. Isn't that great? But you need time to really think about it, and you are moving more in this direction, horizontal way. You don't like going really fast up. You need more time at one level, and then maybe you go up a little, and then you go on the escalator more that way, more horizontally, right? Then we have the staircase people. So you've got the staircase in front of you, right? And you're like, why is it my whole life I feel like it's 3 steps forwards and 2 steps back, and I never get anywhere, right? So for some people, they're walking up that staircase very slowly, and that's all right, okay? But they're still going forward, yes? They're not stopped. It's not like the staircase broke or they ran out of breath and they had to keep going up, right? Then the last one is slow staircase, right? And that's all right too. So you take 1 step and you pause on the step. You're like, okay, I need more time. I'll take another step up. Now, some of these are your parents or your children, right? You are usually born into families, a lot of you on this phone call, where you are on a very much faster approach to ascension than maybe your parents are. But everyone that's alive on this planet right now, whether you are an extraterrestrial being, an interdimensional being, not the angelic realm, they're separate, but anyone that's in a physical structure, in a physical body, you are going through what is called the ascension process, which is this expansion of your consciousness to having more awareness and having more understanding of the universe and your part in that, and letting go of older, heavier emotions like fear and hatred and violence, all of these things are not so much fun, and letting go of evil and letting go of illusion, and you are letting all those old things disappear, and you are rising up into a level of compassion and more understanding and having more moments of, oh, I get it. I understand why they're acting that way. And the more of you, because you're all interconnected, right? You're all part of the unified field. Everyone's connected through the unified field, all of consciousness, right? And Matthew over here is an individuation of consciousness, and Lisa over here is another individuation of consciousness, and I, Ari, am also individuated consciousness, right? We're all able to connect and have conversation and dialogue, right? Dialogue is extremely important right now. And what we are seeing is a lack of dialogue, right? What we are seeing is people are really getting locked into their positions. We're having people go way this direction and way that direction. And so it creates what's called a polarity, right? So instead of it being that two people are walking the same direction, we've got people that have opinions that are one way and then the other way, right? And that creates this polarity, right? So you are all on a planet, a rock solid planet that has a consciousness called Gaia with it that interconnects and interrelates to you as well. So the more polarity and the more this you got going on, guess what happens to the Earth? You're going to have Earth events, things like earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, bombs going off, things like that, because the more that you create this tension, this pull, the more it's going to need to be released somewhere, right? Because you're doing this. But as consciousness becomes unified, as we come together through the internet, for example, right? This is a beautiful invention, this thing called the internet, right? It's a way you can talk to someone in another country, and you don't know what life is like, maybe in Africa or India, but now maybe you have a friend there. Maybe there's people on this call today that are from another country. So then you get to see other wider perspectives that are different than your own. And you start to find out, oh my gosh, we are more alike than we are different. And let's see what we can do about bringing up the next generation, bringing up the children of tomorrow, right? So that they have a better understanding of that I have my own way of doing things, but I'm also part of a community. And I'm also going to do what I can to help those in my community. And in order to do all of that, you've got to have a much wider understanding of the world, and you've got to have much better communication than what people have been seeing. So for a long time, regardless of your religious background or the society in which you've grown up in, if you look across all the societies, if you look across Navajo predictions from their ancestors, and if you look at different holy texts, sacred texts that have been written, they all talk about this time that we're currently in on the planet, of where the planet is raising up out of these lower rates of vibration, and we're going to move up to a much higher level of experience than we've had before. Now, I like to explain it in dimensional time space. For those of you that have heard me do this before, repetition is very important. You get to hear it again. So in the third dimensional world, you have height, depth, and width, and you can put your hand in the cup, that sort of thing, right? That's what you've got. That's what you're used to in this realm of existence. Now, if we were in a flat paper doll world and I was a paper doll, I would not have any depth. I would just be flat, right? But we're not in that. So fourth dimension is time itself, or time space. And that's where we are right now. And so that can be very confusing for people. Time sort of becomes very malleable, you know, it's not solid anymore. It's not like we go from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's not like that anymore. You know, it's not like we're working a job anymore and I go to my office and I arrive at 9 a.m. and I have lunch at noon for an hour and I come back and I work until 5 p.m. No, now people are working from home, they're doing school from home, and they're like, well, I'll work on that for an hour and I'll take a 10-minute break, you know. And so time itself is shifting, our perception of time, how we engage with time. Now, for some of you, there's this concept out there called the Mandela effect. If you're not familiar, you might want to Google it. And it's where that you may remember the past differently from someone else. So the way that term came about was that Nelson Mandela, a lot of people remembered that he lived in prison and he never became president of South Africa. And other people remembered, oh yes, he did become president of South Africa. So that's where that term originally came from. Now, if we go back to how did all of this get off track? Because right now, in case you missed the memo, we are not exactly on track the way I thought the ascension process would go, nor is it how anyone else thought it would go. So have you ever had like a small child come over to your house, you know, and you had a beautiful vase that you had forever on the edge of a pedestal, you know, and you tell the child, please don't touch that beautiful vase over here. But of course, they're 5 years old. What do they know? So they knock it over and it shatters and it's in a bunch of pieces, and you're like, but I need that vase to be in one piece. So I'm going to have to figure out how to glue it back together and put it back over here on the pedestal. So what happened is that the humans decided in their infancy, you know, they're not very advanced compared to a lot of the rest of us, that they were going to do something called building the CERN collider. And that is in Switzerland. And we are going to experiment with this thing called time. And we are going to take two atoms and we're going to smush them together and see what happens, right? So as they began to do more and more experiments on time and began to do things, they began to do things like portals of existence, and different experiences were happening for beings in other realms that were being affected. And as that began to happen, it goes back actually to World War II when you started releasing nuclear bombs and things of that sort. That's when you really got ET's attention, because it was starting to affect other realms of existence. It wasn't just happening here. It was having effects like in my realm, for example. So then you have these advanced beings are like, well, we've got to go help those children. They're out of control, sort of. You know. But you just didn't know. It wasn't out of any meanness or anything like that. You just didn't know. So the ascension process, part of this lovely ascension process, is we are gluing back together the vase, right? That we have created a lot of alternate time, or like branches on the tree. You have what I call, from my realm, the optimal time line, which is the one proper sequential time order of how the universe runs. But with these experiments, it created little branches. Like I have a little 10-month tree branch over here, but at the end of the 10 months, there's nothing there. It just stops, right? And maybe over here, there's a 3-year branch, right? Like that. So as we continue along the ascension process, all of these little shoots of time that got fragmented off, we've got to figure out what to do with those. So as we're moving along, let's say that you're living on an adjacent timeline, right? And you've been on it for 3 years, and your life seems like it's all right. And then all of a sudden, with no warning, everything in your life changes like that. You move across the country, your boyfriend breaks up with you, your child moves out, you know, you crash your car, and everything happens very quickly. And all of a sudden, your life, within a very short time frame, you are somewhere else. And so what's happening is that a lot of you that have gotten stuck on these alternate branches of time need to come back to the main timeline. So time travelers like myself, Arya, I'm Arcturian, we are helping to make sure that everybody that is able to hold this rate of vibration gets back on the major timeline. And if you can't, we make sure you get allocated somewhere else so that you still are having an experience for which you are able to have, right? So that's kind of a quick overview of that aspect of the ascension process, because that's why it's really hard for people right now, because things are happening and shifting and changing so dramatically. So in my culture, in the Arcturian culture, I'm a little, you know, I'm about 4 feet tall, 3 fingers, 3 toes, you know, very advanced. Look, you know, like what you would think an ET looks like. And I'm sort of blue colored. If you Google blue Arcturian, you'll see what I look like, more or less. And I live to be about 450 years old, and I'm give or take around 400. So I'm sort of at the end of my lifetime. And I have come to help this planet with the ascension process. But ascension starts from the time you were born. In some ways, you could go back to a past life if you really wanted to, that this is a ongoing process of growth that we are having, right? And so that is part of what I wanted to talk about, is where we have been And from my perspective, how I look at it, which you may or may not resonate with, it's all right if you don't, but I like to give humans as much information as possible. And if it confuses you, that's wonderful. Because then you've got to think about what I've said. You either have to agree, disagree, or be neutral, right? Where a lot of the other ETs that you'll see channeling messages, they may not give you as much information about themselves, which I think is silly, personally. Because if you're going to have a being channeling through and giving you messages about the future or messages about how things are going to be, I personally would like to know their resume, right? I'd like to know, well, how do you know this stuff? Tell me more about you and how did you get to where you are? And how did you show up in this chair, in this room today, right? So I thought it would be fun to tell that story. Would that be fun, everyone that's here? Yes, let's. Yeah. So I sort of saved this and we'll start it and we'll go in as long as we can. And then if I'm not done with the story, when we take a little mini break, then I'll come back where I stopped and picked it off. So you have Arcturians and Pleiadians and Sirians and Alpha Centauri and reptilians and humans and all of these different types of beings. Inner Earth peoples like Telos, Telosians underneath Mount Shasta. So everybody's kind of got a stake in the game, right? So Stephanie told you a little bit about her ascension process. And so with her, she just continued to follow the next step. She didn't say in the beginning, I'm going to help thousands of people and travel the country and channel this alien woman, right? She didn't do that. But when her spirit was ready for the next step, it would show up, right? So I haven't told this in a while, so I'll tell it because a lot of you may not know it. So Stephanie never was going to channel. Like, that was no way. She grew up in the South. She grew up Catholic. No way. She wasn't going to do this thing called channeling, right? It was not going to happen. And so she went to a party where her mentor was a woman named Sunny. And Sunny there was this beautiful portal on the property and they could really connect with other beings and they were talking and having all this fun and talking to like ghosts and things like that. And so she had a friend named Carol. And Carol got this crazy idea. Now, when you send out a message to the universe responds. You may think the universe did not hear you. The universe always hears when you ask for something, but sometimes the universe says no. And that's not fun when that happens and you think the universe did not hear you. But the universe always hears what you're asking for, right? So that night at that party, the night that changed her life and changed my life, all right? So her friend Carol said, wouldn't it be great fun if extraterrestrials could communicate with us and we could actually talk to them? And Stephanie's like, yeah, it'd be all right, Carol. Let's, whatever. She says, no, let's do it for real. And she stood up at this party and she said, hey, any of you friendly ETs out there that want to come on down and talk to us, you just come on down. We'd love to talk to you. And in that moment, she saw a chalkboard in her head. And they wrote out the word Arcturian, A-R-C-T-U-R-I-A-N. Stephanie had never heard of that. She didn't know what that was. So they go run down the stairs, and technology was new back in 2008. It wasn't quite as advanced as now. And they Googled the word Arcturian and found out loving beings from the fifth dimensional realm that are here to help the humans evolve their consciousness. So her mentor, Sunny, knew we had arrived. We had hit something, right? But it's never just one person's connection, right? I personally, as Aria, was like, well, wouldn't it be fun, to help humans advance? Now, you have to look at what you think you want in life and then what you really want, right? And your spirit, your inner self knows that. Now, I'd been a diplomat for a really long time, and everyone had convinced me, you need to retire, Aria. You've done a lot of work. Why don't you go back to your home world? So I was on a ship, headed back to my home world, ready to retire, and everybody had convinced me, you need to retire, right? But then a friend of mine said, hey, there's these women down on Earth, Stephanie and Carol, and they're sending out a message to the universe. They want to talk to some ETs, and won't this be fun, like your version of TV, reality TV, right? And I said, well, let's do that. Let's go talk to them. It would be fun, right? Having no idea what I was getting myself into, right? But if I look at it at a deeper level, I wasn't ready to be out of the game. I still wanted to be connected to the Earth Project. I still wanted to do diplomacy. I still wanted to help humans ascend. But I had like when you let your family talk you into things, I was like, okay, I'm going to go home. So we started this communication. And in the beginning, it was just fun, play, right? Like, all right, well, my goodness, look at that. She can do it. She can channel. This is fun, right? And we did that for a little bit. She was on her path of ascension. She'd go study with Michael Beckwith or go get, learn the light blessings from Lindsay Wagner and the oneness blessing. And she got a Reiki certificate, and along the path we go, right? So then she got good. And I was surprised, honestly. I was like, well, my God, look how fast she goes into state, how fast she can channel, and she can get up and walk around. And then before she knew it, she was really good. And I thought, well, now I really got to make a decision about what do I do. And I knew we were coming into this time frame. So I thought, well, let's see who we can help, right? So one of the things that I like to say to everybody is, people will say, all right, I'm on earth. What am I supposed to be doing? Right? She hears that hundreds of times. What is my life purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? It's very American, right? Supposed to be. Well, you're doing it already. If you're here in this time period, you came to have a bigger, grander experience, right? And some of us are not going to be, famous person, right? Some of us are going to have a regular job. Maybe you're a school teacher. Maybe you're a janitor. Maybe, you drive the bus, right? But it's all about the person in front of you. You help the person in front of you. If you're available, right, then you help that person in front of you. And that person grows and you grow. And you will be attracted exactly where you need to be if you're following that inner voice within you that says, today you might want to go a different way. So let's talk about today with Stephanie. So you have a really concrete example. So she could have taken the interstate way, but her guidance said, no, bad plan, really bad plan. Like she felt the energy like, oh, really can't do that. So she's shooting down 15501, going to take the back way over Garrett, come down Highway 54, cut over 70, really come down the long way instead of hitting the interstate. And as they get going over the 40 pass, there's a huge fire and lots of vehicles, traffic backed up for miles. Now, if that had happened, I wouldn't have been here right now, would I? I'd have been stuck in that traffic jam. So this is what the ascension process is about. You've got to pay attention to what's happening right in front of you. And with the current environment, there's pressure to expand and to grow. And you've got a lot of, you've got COVID-19 and you've got earth changes and everything's happening and there's a lot of pressure. What that does for a lot of people is it makes people go faster. They speed up like, oh, this is too much change. I got to go faster. When in actuality, the best thing you can do for yourself during ascension is to slow down. Sometimes come to a stop, a complete halt, take off a whole day and say, okay, hold up. I need to look at all of the stimulus coming at me and decide what's my personal best response to that stimulus, right? So free will. What is free will? Very important, right? Yeah, we're doing all right on the recording. You're happy with your recording. All right, so free will. Your free will lies in your response to a given situation, right? You don't always have a choice about being hit in a car by a drunk driver, but you can choose your response, right? A lot of things in life happen that you have to deal with and respond, and that's where your free will lies. And right now, as a species, and I'm talking the whole planet, I'm not just talking the United States, or just Canada, or just Africa, I'm talking about the whole human collective. We have a unifying factor. And up until now, you haven't really had that because you lived in communities and you didn't have airplanes to take you from one country to another. If you got on a boat, it took a long time to get anywhere. And so you could ignore the people over there because you weren't ever really going to probably meet the people from over there, right? But now you have the internet and you have unification and we have things happening that are giving you as humanity a chance to unify, right? So COVID-19, well, my goodness. Would you agree, everybody in the room, that pretty much everybody's been affected? And I don't think that, I think even people in, the little spaceships that had to land in the water, whatever, everyone's been affected, right? So we call it, from our ET perspective, a unifying factor. It's something that brings you together as a species. And as you come together as a species, the things that are, how should I put this, that are mean or violent or not great, whereas in the past you might have ignored that, because there's a big spotlight on all of you, you may all of a sudden notice, oh my gosh, how do I help those little children over there that don't have enough to eat? Or how do I help those little children in my own town that don't have enough to eat, right? So it gives you a level of awareness of your connection to humanity and to the rest of your species. And right now what we're seeing is this huge polarity. But what we're going to see, hopefully, is that as we begin to have more awareness, as people's awareness expands, we're going to go, oh, wait a minute. We are more alike than we are different. And that's what we need right now. We need leaders. We need people to go out there and say, you know what, it's going to be all right. Down the road, it's going to be all right. Right now, there's a lot of chaos, but there's going to be a day when the chaos has leveled off, and we are going to be a more collected consciousness. We're going to be a more loving species. We're going to be really caring about each other, right? And I'm so happy that I'm here to be a part of all that. I'm doing all right on my time. And so for everyone, you've got to look at, in my own life, what can I do to make my experience better and whatever's happening in front of me better, right? And following that guidance of what's going on, right? Whatever that is, you've got to look at that, right? And so that's really, really important that you begin to trust your own inner voice, your own inner guidance of, wow, I feel the need to move, right? Now, remember back when I was talking about those, and I know I'm over the place, but that's all right. You know, when I was talking about 5 different ways of ascension, you could be on the elevator, the escalator, and all of that. Well, that's how I thought, and how most of the ETs thought it was going to be, right? 20%, 5 different little segments were good, right? Well, we were wrong. Isn't that amazing? We guessed wrong. And I looked at every single variable, or I thought I had, right? But that's not what's happening, not at all. So now I'm sitting here like puzzling, you know, like now what do I do? I feel like Winnie the Pooh, right? Like, oh my God, what do I do? So this is what's actually happening, right? So if you look at David Hawkins' scale, and he's lovely, or you look at Esther Hicks' information, and they have the levels of consciousness. And if you put 200 at neutral and 500 love frequency on a scale of 1,000, you know, originally most of the ETs thought, well, you know what's going to happen? They're going to bunch together in about 5 groups, and we can track that. It'll be all right, right? That's what we thought, but that's not what's happening at all, right? What's happening is that it's little pockets, little tiny, it's like a 1,000-piece puzzle. Instead of being 5 segments like we had hoped, right? No, it's not like that at all. So it's more complicated because it's like 1,000 different levels. And so let's say that your vibrational level, you're in the 540 to 550 level, right? You're in the love frequency, and you've got that, and you've let go of really lower vibrations, but you're in this little 10-point range, right? Well, guess what is happening? It's called the Great Migration from my point of view. These little tiny segments of ascension are magnetizing people, right? So you're going to see people move like you've never seen movement across this planet before. And there's going to be this resistant energy of, well, you can't go there, or you can't go there, right? So what's happening right now in the United States of America is people do not want to get on an airplane, and I understand that. So they're driving everywhere. And they're saying, gee, I'm going to get an RV. RV sales are through the roof. My goodness, if you are an RV salesman, you are making a lot of money right now. And so the parks are overwhelmed. You know, they'll open up like Utah State Park, whatever that is, right? And by 11 a.m., you've got 25,000 people on your doorstep, and you have to close down because you're like, oh my goodness, what happened? Magnetism. Those people are all at a similar rate of vibration, right? Internet, you're going to see that. You're going to see it's these really thin lines, right? So that's interesting because that's not what I thought would happen with Ascension, but that's where we are right now, and that is what is happening with consciousness, as people are feeling drawn to similar to them, but I mean really similar to them, like extremely likeness of same opinion, if you follow me, all right? So I hope this is interesting for everyone. I'm sure it is. So that is an unknown. What's that? Oh, someone's making a comment. All right, we'll get to that in a little bit. So that is what's actually been happening, and it's very interesting to watch. What I would like to see more of, though it's not my planet, not my opinion, and it's really your planet and up to all of you, is I would like to see more compassion for someone else's opinion, all right? So a hot topic, a very hot topic for Stephanie has been this concept of this thing called a mask, right? Well, I'm not going to get into that debate. I just am going to show you some differences that are important to observe, okay? Differences, and that we need to think of each other as a community-based option. What can we do to be creative to get the best result possible? Let's try that again, everybody. What can we do to be more creative and not adversarial, creative, to come up with better solutions for everybody, right? So if you are someone who's older and really needs to wear a mask or have really major medical issues and you really can't be around it, by God, you need to be doing that. But if you have a nonverbal autistic child that has sensory issues and cannot wear it no matter what, but still needs to go to the doctor, you've got to come up with better solutions. And so it's about figuring out how do we work as a collective to make sure we're taking care of each other, but at the same time acknowledging that there are individual differences that do need to be acknowledged and honored. And that means we need to, guess what, work together to come up with solutions. Instead of reacting, a lot of people are reacting and saying, well, I cannot do that ever, you know, or I have to do that this certain way. Now, some people really have to be a certain way, and you've got to look at it and say, okay, we're going to see what we can do about compromise and where we need to be on whatever the topic is, whatever the issue is. But the most important thing is the person in front of you, right? The person you're talking to today, the person you're interacting with. What can you do to raise your own rate of vibration? What can you do to help them? If you see the poor hassled girl at the grocery store that's really, really tired, and can you say something nice to her? Can you say, my gosh, honey, I'm sure this has really been challenging for you. She's on the front lines. I can guarantee you it's been challenging for her, right? You have people that are isolated, living alone, that have no one to talk to at all. You have people that have not had a hug in 3 months, right? So what can we do in our community? So what Stephanie's done on this call with some of you, as you know, she's got a lot of clients that live alone, and she started a little phone network, right? Okay, I got 3 people that all live alone. Let me exchange phone numbers with everybody. And now they're all having the best time ever talking to each other, you know, and they're not lonely anymore. This is what I'm talking about. We need solutions, everybody. We need to take a collective breath. All right, breathe out, let it go. All right, we've got a big puzzle to build, but if we all work together, we can put together that 1,000-piece puzzle. It's really going to be all right, right? We've got to get to this space where we acknowledge that we are all connected, that we are, I am connected to you as well, right? And as the humans ascend, guess what? I get to ascend too. So I'm in a physical body, but this is my last lifetime doing that. Esther Hicks and Abraham, for those of you familiar, Abraham is a non-physical consciousness collective group and not in a physical body. So the end of 5th dimension is the last physical incarnate, last time you got physicality, really. And then after that, you're pure consciousness. So if you get to 6th dimension or higher, now Stephanie learned old-fashioned dimensions, you know. So I'm giving kind of old-fashioned news. Some people talk densities, but she never could get that. So I have to go with this, you know. She just learned it that way, and so to make her brain easier, we just do it that way. So this is my graduation from physicality, right? My helping the humans, and I'm moving forward, and I have my own skill sets for which I am very well accomplished, as do all of you, right? So that's why I want everyone to know that what you do is really important. Some of you are beautiful parents out there. And are very respectful of your parents, you know. There's family relationships, and these are very important. Or maybe you work as a police officer, or maybe you work as a school teacher, or whatever it is. All of those are very important, and you have your own life mission. Some people are here to grow their spirit. Some people here grow their spirit through partnership in a marriage, right? Some people do it taking care of a special needs child, you know. It just depends on how you choose to grow and how that goes. All right, doing good so far. All right. So we're going to go back all the way back to the beginning of my experience. I've got a few minutes. I'll start it and then I'll finish it after. All right. So on my planet, we do, babies are born in like, you know, a test tube sort of way, right? Not the way you all do, but in more of a test tube sort of way. So it's very seldom that we get an anomaly or get an unexpected birth. We don't have much illness, we don't have much disease, nothing like that. We're very advanced, we have very fast spaceships and all of that. But on a random, rare occasion, something unusual will happen. And we also have prophecies in my culture, like you do in your culture. And so there was this prophecy from years ago that there was going to be a time when all of these twins were going to be born, these girl twins, right? So I'm an identical twin. My sister's name is Aria, A-R-I-A, and 8 sets of girls, twin girls, were born, and they weren't like test tube born. You know, they randomly showed up anomaly, and so that was part of the prophecy. And they all came in with a very high love quotient, myself and my sister Aria, the twin. And so I had a very unique perspective coming in anyway. You know, I was more on this planet, what you call a child prodigy, that sort of thing. But in my planet, because it was the prophecy, you know, see, it's very similar in other planets too. They didn't know what to do with all of us. So they thought, well, if we leave them here, they might affect the consciousness of the Arcturians. So we're not going to let them stay on their homeworld. We're going to send them off. And so I got sent to the Syrian homeworld. I grew up mostly on a Sirius star system because they were like, well, what do we do with them? Well, then when they realized we were just, you know, slightly advanced children, they were like, well, maybe we do need their help back on our planet. So now we want to bring them back from the Sirius star system. So then they brought us all back, you know. And so it was an interesting way to grow up, to be on one planet and be shot over here and then that. So I think that's where I got my love of going through space and meeting new people and all of that. But then they decided that I need to be a proper Arcturian person, right? So they gave me a job. So I don't understand in your planet, but you have your middle-aged people, like 20, 30-year-old people, raise your children. I do not get that at all. How can you raise your children when you're not very wise? On my planet, the grandparents usually raise the children, right? That's normally how we do it. Why would you have people that haven't lived very long raise children? I don't get that, right? But occasionally, because I was advanced, and even though I wasn't very old, they thought, well, we need to put us somewhere. So the children are usually grown in, not grown, but they like a summer camp or dorms, college-like. So I was dorm mother. They made me dorm mother, right, of all these girls. And for a long time, like 50 years, I did that, right? And so that was the first part. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is just that you see the similarities between my world and your own. We're just ahead of you a bit, you know? And so there were segments of my life, just like you have decades here of your life, right? And so I got interested in genetics because of my unique heritage. And so I started studying genetics and things of that nature. And I got kind of bored doing that kind of job, and I wanted to do something else. And I got known for my studying of genetics. So I did that for a bit. And then, as fate would have it, I had a hobby that I thought was just a hobby. And you know how sometimes you might be really good at something and you just don't know it because nobody ever told you and you really hadn't had an opportunity to try it out, you know? Let's say you've never been on roller skates before and then you get on them, and maybe you didn't get on them until you were 25 and you find out, oh my gosh, I'm a natural. I can just do it, right? So I was very good at piloting spaceships. Right? But I didn't know that. I just did it for fun. I didn't think a whole lot about it, you know? Didn't think that much about it at all. So it was something that I just didn't pay that much attention to. Well, there was a very special school on a planet that was like best known school in the universe for being pilot of a spaceship. Now, in my world, the spaceships that we have are living. They're living beings, and you merge. You have your controls, and so I would take my fingers and I would merge with my spaceship. And it's like you ride horses in America. You're literally merging your consciousness. And then the two of you together, that's kind of a form of channeling, really. And we would do that, right? We would merge our consciousness, and I was really, really good at it. But no one ever told me I was very good at it. So the person that was the head of this school, right, didn't want to give me a shot, you know? So like if you're in an NFL football, right, I'll do this last part, then we'll take a mini break, all right? So it was like, instead of getting an official tryout for the NFL football team, you know, you're a walk-on and they don't really want to give you a shot, but they're like, oh, what the heck, we'll give her a try, right? And so they had the person, the head of this school, but I'm still kind of oblivious to the whole thing, and I'm just thinking it's fun or whatever. And he would say, you know, like, do a double flip backward, whatever. And I didn't know what he was talking about. And so I just look at him and be like, I don't know what that is. And then he would describe it. He says, well, can you make the ship do this? I was like, oh, you mean like this? Do, you know? And he's like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anyone fly like this. So guess what? They took me at the school. So before I became a diplomat, most of my career, I was a crackerjack pilot. I'm still a crackerjack pilot, right? And so that's probably, of all the jobs I've ever had, I like that one the best. But how I got from being a crackerjack pilot to being assigned to the Earth mission and being a diplomat and channeling and helping humanity with evolution of consciousness is a story for the second half. Is this a good break time? All right, everybody. Matt, do we hit pause? 10 minutes, everybody? 10 minutes good?
We can keep it live.
We can keep it live. All right, we can keep it live. Well, then it doesn't even have to be 10 minutes. I'm just going to step out for a minute or two and I'll come right back. Does that work?
Yes.
And then you're going to have to calculate the math and just give me a general idea of what time we're going to do questions.
Yes.
I'll let you figure that part out. I'll be right back, everybody. Hold spots. I'm back, everyone. So, I hope everyone's having a good time. So we're going to go until about 9:30, and from 9:30 to 9:45, we will do some questions. And Matthew might be the one, since he's next over here, to read it out. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out somehow. All right, so I was telling the story because, you know, I feel like for all of you that you are on the precipice of having either your own personal interactions with extraterrestrials or interdimensionals, if you want to call us that. And it may not always be in a physical format like I beam into your kitchen, you know, because some of the differentiation between my realm and your realm, a lot of you wouldn't be able to see me. Even if I beamed in, you still wouldn't be able to see me. You don't have a wide enough visual parameter. But as more and more people are channeling and having these experiences, you're beginning to understand you're part of a wider world than you thought. And that there's more loving beings and all sorts of different interactions that you were not aware of, right? And that's just the nature of the times we're in. You know, a lot of the shamans and wise men and women and medicine people, you know, from ancient cultures were aware of this. And you've lost some of your connection as modernization came along. And it feels like a lot of you now are coming back to sort of combining and merging your modernization and your technology with opening up your psychic abilities and your psychic connection to higher realms. So, back to my story of where I've been and how I got here. Because, you know, sometimes I look at my life, and I'm sure some of you do, and you say, how in the world did I get from there to here, right? And so sometimes in life, we've had a lot of tragedies, right? And tragedies help us sometimes to grow, you know? And you can make a choice on how to respond. You can have two people land themselves in a wheelchair, and one person is totally destroyed by it, and another person discovers a whole life they didn't know they had. You know, they get a job and they're helping people and they're more loving and more supportive. A lot of it is, once again, your free will to respond. How do I respond to that situation, right? Stephanie doesn't talk about it a whole lot. She's doing a talk on Sunday where she's going to share a lot more of her own life. Stephanie's had a lot more tragedy than you can imagine. And she's a pretty bright and bubbly person, right? And that's just part of what she's done as a way to just say, I'm going to really grasp life, and I'm going to get every bit of life I can out of life. And that's a side effect of someone that's died a couple of times, is you really appreciate it, I think, more in some ways. And you just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And it's really important that we help teach the young ones that life is a beautiful thing and it's worth it, and stay here, and please stay alive and be here for this fun experience of whatever way life takes you. And you always have the chance to redo, right? Life is not written in pen, everybody. It's written in pencil. Right? You can erase, you can go back, change it, start over. That did not go well, I will try it again. So resilience, adaptation. This is a time where you need resilience and adaptation. You've got to be able to adapt to new ways of being and say, well, I did not see that happen. Now, I'm going to say this, and a lot of you are going to do this. You're going to be like, oh no, that cannot be true. But it is true, and it's all right. So about 80% of what you now have in your lives probably will not be here in a couple of years. Things are going to disappear, you know. I'll give you an easy example. Matthew loves gluten-free bakehouse biscuits, right? Well, they closed because of what's happening in the world, and they're not going to reopen. So he'll never have another biscuit from them again. Oh my gosh. Stores, restaurants, things that you thought would be there, not going to happen. The movie Mulan, everyone. For those of you waiting for the Mulan release, a lot of you are waiting for the release of Mulan. It is going to Disney Plus, September the 4th, $30. You want to see Mulan, you got to pay $30 and be a member of Disney Plus. All right? So we live in unique and bizarre times, right? But that's okay. If 80% goes away, right, and the universe abhors a vacuum, we got to fill that empty space. That means that of that 80% that's going to disappear, a whole lot of that is horrible things we want to go away, right? People being super mean to each other and not taking care of children and not really seeing how beautiful their own light is. And that 80% that disappears, a lot of that is going to be beautiful things coming in, beautiful connections, beautiful rebuilding of the planet sort of thing, right? So we've got to look at it as there's a lot of new and beautiful things coming in. So I was so happy when I became a pilot that I did not have to take care of the children anymore, even though I enjoyed that. I am not the motherly type, everybody. I am more like, you know, businesswoman type, right? So I really liked being the pilot, and that was great fun. And you know how it is for those of you that have been in relationships or gotten married. I fell in love with a Syrian man, a man from star system Sirius, because I'd grown up there. And there's two types of Syrian language. There's ancient Syrian and then regular, modern. And I spoke ancient because that's what I grew up with. And he spoke ancient. His name was Al-Taral. And we fell in love. Isn't that great? He was on a mission, and I was his pilot, taking him to a diplomatic mission. And we had to hide out behind an asteroid because there were some fussy beings around. And so we got to know each other. And he had to go do this diplomat thing, and he needed someone else to help negotiate. And the rest of his team could not get there. And guess who got tagged to be a diplomat, who was just a pilot, you know? And I was like, I have no skill for this. What in the world? What are you talking about? And so we had a successful diplomacy thing. And he's like, you know, you're pretty good at this. You really ought to give it a shot. And I really thought he was an interesting person to be around. So I said, well, I'll go check this out. And so long story short, we ended up in your version of a marriage, you know, that sort of thing. And so then I became a diplomat's wife, basically, but I was doing a lot of diplomacy, and I was helping him a lot. And then back in the 1950s, there was a huge contingent. The Venusians came, Valiant Thor, for those of you familiar with Valiant Thor, came, and that was Eisenhower and all of that back in the 50s, and they came to offer help and say, hello, you're part of the bigger world. Would you like help from us right now or not? Right? So there's a lot of diplomacy that happened back in those days. And Al-Taral was a big diplomat, and I came along. And while we were doing some negotiations and businesses, there was something that did not go so great, and he died as a result of some miscommunications. And so he had the best ability to negotiate between species that were having problems, and he knew the most about it. So guess what happened? Anybody want to guess? Everyone's looking at me going, well, no one knows more about it than you do. It was 1954. I will never forget it. All right, I was here on this planet. Now, at that time, my sister Aria, the twin, was off in Vegas partying and having a blast. So I ended up in Vegas a lot too, trying to keep her out of trouble. You know, back in those days, though, ETs would walk around Vegas. They really would, because they could cover up and people wouldn't notice them as much. And a lot of ET groups look very similar to humans. Maybe you're extra tall, maybe a little blue, you know. And you could get away with a lot back in those days. And so there was a lot of interactions back then and all of that. And so that's when I first got really involved on the planet. And then when Mandela got into South Africa, I did a lot on helping that country get to a better level of getting away from so much tragedy. And I did a lot, you know, behind the scenes to help that country come along in a better way. So I got in the Earth mission, as you see. I'm on the Earth mission now. So I've always liked the humans. And so let me tell you the best things about Earth. Would everyone like to know the best things about Earth? Okay, we're going to tell everyone the best things. There's no place on the Earth with better parenting ability, because a lot of species are, you're 2 years old and you're an adult, you know, you have short amount of childhood, and here it's long, 18 years, you know, a long time until you become an adult. And so parenting here, physicality, it's a very physical planet. A lot of planets are more ethereal and don't have as wide a range of experience. You don't have food in other planets that like the food you have here. You know, a lot of ETs come here for the food, right? Well, there's good food here. We've got all kinds of food. And so like my species is like liquid protein. I can't really eat all of what you eat. But for some species, it's a lot of fun. They can come here and eat food. And so if you look at the galactic spinning thing, you know, Earth's way out here on the outer rim, and you're next to a stargate. So you're sort of like vacation spot, you know, your whole planet's sort of like Florida, right? Like it's a place where a lot of ETs come and refuel and get their stuff and move on. And because you have this tiny bandwidth as humans and you don't see a lot and don't pick up a lot, you're not even aware. So we're sharing the same time space. Like you could have an ET walk through the room, but they're at a different level of dimension, and it's like they're overlaid, right? So that's why a lot of these ET interactions. Have you ever wondered when you see those spaceships, right? And it's there, right? And you say, I saw a spaceship, and boom, it's gone, right? Well, it didn't really disappear. It's still there. It didn't go anywhere, but you only believed you could see it for a short span of time. And then your mind goes, well, that can't really be there, and so it faded for you. but it's still there, right? So as people's rate of vibration raises, more and more people can see things. And you've seen that since the 50s going forward, much more people talking about spaceships and things they've seen. But it hasn't really shifted a whole lot. Right? There's much more interaction, interconnection now than there was before. So in my own evolution, right, it's been an interesting path because I have always been very dedicated to my own expansion of my consciousness, and I really like helping the humans expand theirs. So if you've met me, then you're on my team, so to speak. You're part of my understanding of the universe, and I'm here to help everybody evolve. And I don't care where you start and where you end. That doesn't matter to me. You know, you could be at 750, great. You know, you could be at 200 or at 50, right? What I'm looking at is how far did you go? Did you go from 50 to 350? That's a 300 point up, yes? That's what I'm looking at. Or did you go just, you know, from, I don't know, 400 to 410? That's still pretty good. You gained 10 points, whatever, if you're looking at rate of vibration. So the universe operates 100%, everybody, on rate of vibration. Some things move very slowly, right? And some flicker really fast. Those fluorescent lights go really fast, right? And some people feel those and other people don't. And so Earth in general is a very slow planet. It takes 9 months to have a baby, right? A lot of places not like that. In the universe, a lot of things really quick, really fast. Things move fast, right? So Earth is going from this very slow rate of vibration to picking up speed and being a much faster planet and having things shift faster. So if we look at the ascension process itself, from my perspective, it started on March the 6th. We are past March the 6th. We are not back at March the 6th anymore. And it's going to go into the end of this year, which is December the 21st. At that time, from an alignment of the stars and the heavens and the planets and all of that, that's the last day of, if you look at your elements, you have earth, water, fire, and air. All right. And you've been in this earth energy, which is symbolized by solid structures like governments, educational systems, or corporations, everything that's solid structures, driving a car and living in a house, you know, all of these things that are very, very solid. And those structures are going to collapse upon themselves and fall apart and fall away and be replaced and rebuilt by, starting December 22nd, we're entering an age of air energy. New ideas, storing things up on your cloud on the internet, right? It's a much lighter, faster, quicker way of looking at things. And for people trying to hold on to the old world, they are not going to be able to do that come December 22nd. They're going to have, if they're still here, if you're still here on the planet on December 22nd, that means you have arrived, right? December 22nd, you're alive and on the planet, you've arrived, you've ascended. Well, welcome to the new world, everybody. Now, that's just the way it is from my perspective, and hopefully you'll agree. But I can tell you right now, come December 22nd, you people are going to get up and expect a second sun in the sky, or rainbows everywhere, or everyone walking around singing Kumbaya. It's not like that. It's not like that at all, right? But it is different. And it's going to be so different from now. And there's so much change because a lot of powerful beings are doing what is called compressed time. How long did today seem to anybody? Did today seem long? It's like you need more time. The humans need more time so that more of you have the ability to ascend. So what you may have perceived as a 12-hour day might have been 2 weeks or 2 months or longer, because everything's being done so that you have as much time as possible, so as many of you as possible can make it, right? And if you notice, we're not having horrible outcomes at the moment. It's weird, and yes, we are having some losses, and yes, some people are dying off, but it's not like apocalyptic kind of, you know, where we're losing billions of people. That's not what's happening currently, right? So we are learning very quickly what is it that we need to do as a collective consciousness so that we can all merge together and figure out how to make the world a better, more loving place. It's a fun place to be, right? And who gets to decide, right? Who gets to be the writer of your life, the author of your life? A lot of us have let other people write our story, right? We've allowed other people, well, I don't want my mother to be mad at me, so, you know, I'm not going to go take that trip to Hawaii. I'm just going to stay home, you know? And so a lot of us have allowed other people to have power struggles and to use power in a not great way, right? So we're going to see a shift in that. Right now, your culture has real power, huge power imbalances where there are certain people that have all the power and other people that have no power at all. And there's some in the middle. And that imbalance, again, what did I tell you? Creates pull, tension, right? That's when you get earthquakes, hurricanes, things happen, because then you can't sustain that differentiation between, you know, 1% of the people having the power and the majority of the people don't, and then you've got a bunch of people at the other end. It messes everything up because it's such a huge imbalance. And the planet will rectify that one way or the other. And usually what happens is if there's enough chaos, then people begin to work together because they're like, oh my gosh, that hurricane is coming. Let's help my neighbor board up his windows. I've got some extra boards. Let me go board up his window for him. You know, I don't want anything to happen to him. And we start helping each other. So that's the upside of chaos, if it goes well, right? Is that we say, well, let me see what I can do to help the person in front of me. And you start, it can grow a lot of really great compassion, right? So for those of you that want like specifics and details, here we go. Hold on to your hat. The most challenging week of your entire lives is coming up this month, aren't you, Dre? Yay, we're so excited. So everybody's prepared, right? So August 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, August 26th. Oh goodness, that'll be a fun day. August 27th, August 28th. You've got those 8 days, everybody. And more than likely, a lot can happen. So I don't predict the future, and Earth can go a lot of different ways. But that being said, the most likely trajectory is that you will have 3 major Earth events in that 8-day period. Probably one earthquake, one hurricane, and a whole lot of flooding someplace else, probably something like that. And there might be some other little chaoses happening at the same time. Now that's a lot of pressure, right? A lot of pressure getting released, right? So if you have a lot happening, if you put a lot of pressure here, it's got the release valve's got to come out that way, right? We get past that date, past August 28th, August 29th, then people are going to have that really big cold water all got thrown in their face. And hopefully, if this goes according to plan, then you will see that people begin to start saying, okay, I've got to really change how I look at my life, and I've got to look at how I do everything, right? It's very introspective. It's going to be very tough and chaotic going up to that. And then September is going to be a time of like really tremendous reflection of people looking at, oh my God, I've been drinking alcohol for 20 years. What am I doing? I'm destroying my liver. Oh my gosh, I will never touch another drop. And just like that, they stop. And these are people that have tried for years to stop drinking alcohol, let's say. And just like that, the aha hits them, and without even an effort, it's gone. How great is that? And that's what the ascension process does. It's a greater awareness of, why would I do this behavior? Or wow, I did not look at that. Or, oh my gosh, I've got to do that differently. And it may be, I always wanted to write that book. I never got around to writing that book. And all of a sudden I wrote it in 2 weeks and I'm publishing it myself online, and oh my God, what just happened, right? Or this is the more fun one for people that are single. You know, you go do something simple, like go to the grocery store, and you and another, you know, you're a woman and you reach for the lemon and the man reaches for the lemon, and you both go, oh my gosh, you know, do you want to go out and have coffee or something? People are going to attract magnetically, right? For real, that's how it goes. And so we're doing a lot of past life karma balancing. So we're in a spot in the universe where all karma must be balanced. Karma, K-A-R-M-A. Your past lives are getting balanced. So let's say that you had a past life in Italy and the love of your life died at 23 in childbirth, and you always loved that one and you really wanted to meet her again, but now you're 40 and you never got to have that life together, but now you're meeting her later in life and you're sort of finishing out that life contract. What we're seeing a lot of is lovers that were what do you call it, did not get to complete their relationship, are being magnetically drawn back to each other, later in life, usually 45 or older, and they're going to finish out the rest of that lifespan. And we're seeing really sweet little romances of people in their 70s. It's really so cute, that are going to live until their 90s, right? So you might have 20 years with that person. So don't count yourself out, you know? So we're going to see a lot of that. We're going to see all sorts of new ways of looking at things. So here's one. Adoption may become more fashionable than it is now. In my planet, adoption's a big thing, right? There are a lot of, you know, people that will adopt, you know, there are some people that like to experience carrying a baby to term, right? And in my species, it's, I didn't explain that well, did I? Go back and explain that. So it's sort of like you've already got everything you need, and then the woman carries the baby, you know, the female will carry the baby to term, but you did it in a test tube sort of way, right? So there's a lot of that. So there's a lot of people in my planet that will like to carry a baby to term, but then not raise it, want to do adoption, let's say. You may see that in your culture. You may see more women saying, you know, I really want to have the experience of having a pregnancy and delivering a child, and then maybe I'm the aunt. You know, you may see really unique, loving combinations changing, and family structures changing, and how we approach things changing, but it's all loving and supportive, and it may be very different than what you've got going on now. Or you may, you know, see out of necessity, like, okay, prices are really sky high in San Francisco, so we've got, you know, 5 people sharing a house or whatever that is, but it's bringing people back together in community. And you're probably going to see a lot of people leaving the cities now in a big way. Like, I don't want to be in the city. Because you've got the internet, right? You can live in the middle of Utah, right? If you've always wanted to go ski and be a skier, and you can run your business from at home, it's really opening up a lot of opportunities, and you're going to see people taking those. You're going to see people saying, I am not going to wait to retire. I'm retiring right now. I'm going to enjoy life now, and I know that I have the resilience and the adaptation that I can survive whatever, and then when my money runs out, I'll get creative, and it's okay. So you're going to see people taking more risk and having more adventure and all of those lovely, lovely things, which is really, really great. And to see all of that. So I would love to see everybody on the call and anyone watching this video to start looking at all the beautiful aspects of what's happening in your world right now. How many parents do you think, and you have to look at collective consciousness, because that's on the table, right? How many parents do you think worked 50 hours a week before COVID-19 that said to themselves, you know, I'd give anything if I could stay home with my child. I really want to be with my little person. I want to watch them grow up, right? And that sound vibration goes out to the universe, right? Now, maybe they didn't think COVID-19 was the way to do it, but look where we are now. How many cities, how many places will parents be homeschooling from at home because they can't send them to the school building, right? And so it's building family connections, it's building family unities, it's putting people back together, right? So you've got to look at where's the energy leaving and where's the energy going, right? Now, some of this might be a little hard, but we're going to go there anyway. It's all right. So you have a lot of really wise wisdom keepers leaving the planet. So if you're over the age of 60, you are what we call a wisdom keeper, and you are to impart your knowledge to the younger generations. But we've got a lot of people that are older that are leaving us right now as a side effect of what's going on. But if you look at the collective consciousness, right, you've got to go look at that group as a whole, the ones that are transitioning in that way, that are older, and why is that happening, right? If I look at it objectively, and yes, the virus is absolutely real, and yes, you need to be protected, and yes, take every precaution that you possibly can. But if you look at the collective consciousness of those that are transitioning in such a way, a lot of them are people who have a fear, right? So fear is false evidence appearing real, right? But if you look at them as a group, what's the similarity? I, Arya, am looking at them as a group, and what's the similarity? Here we go, everybody. And this is why you've got to look at your own life. You can create positively or negatively. You're going to create. Your spirit is going to create. And the more conscious you are of your pattern, the more you can change that pattern and have better results, right? So a lot of people have like Alzheimer's, or they have long illnesses where they're going to live a very long time, like 7 years, 10 years, in not great shape, where it's not much fun. And so it's created a collective fear of, oh, I don't want to go out like that. I want to go out quick, right? I want to go out really fast. Well, a virus that comes through and takes you out fairly quickly, you go very quickly. And so if you look at the collective consciousness, that's what you've got to look at. Not only your own individuation of consciousness, but what's happening to the collective, literally what's happening. Where are we seeing the shifts? Where are things changing? How are things shifting to be better? Now, you may have someone that had that fear and they go in the hospital, right? And they're being treated for the virus, let's say, but they've lived alone, they've had no care, they've been lonely, and they go to the hospital and the nurses are oohing and awing over them, and they're getting attention and affection, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, I think I will stay alive after all. You know, I think there was a man 100 years old recovered from that virus. They were talking about this man that recovered, right? So it's always about your own collective consciousness. Where is your consciousness? And some people are just very happy to go home. They're like, job completed, I'm happy to leave Earth, it's been great fun, I'm ready to go on, right? So it's all different kinds. Now, the other thing that's happening is the human DNA is actually changing. You know about that if you're in metaphysics, that the DNA itself is evolving and changing. And that's why these young children coming in are so different from the generations that we've had prior, right? At 9 years old, we've got little millionaires, literally. We've got children at 9 years old who are millionaires who have created a way to clean up the ocean. My goodness, right? That sort of thing. And so you're seeing an evolution of consciousness, but you're also going to see a huge shortening of the age to adulthood. So, see, I don't look at things in 20-year periods. I look at things in 1,000-year periods, right? So if we go out a couple hundred years, you're going to be adults at like 12. You know, you're not going to be adults at 18. You know, you're going to be really together and really know your mind at a much younger age, because that's part of this evolution of consciousness. This is a lot. We're a lot of everybody. All right, so, all right, everybody, I'm going to pull out my cheat sheet that Stephanie made me write out, you see? I've got my cheat. Is that all right, everybody? She's like, make sure that you cover all the big themes. The big themes. So it's all big, or all little, depending on your point of view. All right, let me look, make sure I covered everything. All the big points. I talked about all that. Oh, that's the easy one. So what do? I like simple. Simple is easy, right? So what do you do to help yourself for the ascension process? Here we go. It's really simple. Eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired, and move, move, move. Because a lot of the energies are going to make it where you're going to not feel like moving, right? So exercise, walk, get outside, breathe air. And if you notice, as a side effect of everything, because so many of your fun things to do are closed, more and more people are going outside than ever. They're going and walking in parks, and they're getting exercise, and they're really paying attention to their health, and they're cooking at home, and they're eating healthy, but they're like, oh my God, if I have to cook one more meal, this is terrible. I can't do another meal. I have to cook. This is terrible. So then they go through the drive-thru. But that is really big. Eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired, and move, move, move. All right. And some of this is really simple, you know, and sometimes people like to make it complicated, but it's really not complicated at all. I did all that. Did I do that? Yeah. Okay, look over. Humanity is waking up. Yes, they are. So we, the people, have the right to say no to torture and yes to life. You know, if that were going to be my bumper sticker on the back of my spaceship, I would tell everyone, you have the right to say no to torture and yes to life. Because you've got a lot of, in other planets, we do not hurt our own kind. You don't see an Arcturian pulling out a gun and shooting another Arcturian. That's your DNA. That's your future. You don't hurt your own children. Why would you do that? That's your DNA evolving itself, right? I don't understand that at all, right? And so for a planet like this, we've got to get away from this violent structure that's in place and moving towards a life affirming. We need to get away from life destroying and move towards life affirming. And you can make little changes that help, right? And help someone that's stressed out, and help them have better coping mechanisms, and teach someone how to be a better mother if they haven't got a clue. You know, if you weren't raised well, then you just don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know, you just flat out don't know, right? If you put a baby on a sleeping bag and you think, oh, It'll be cushiony for the baby to sleep on that sleeping bag. It's so sweet, you know, but you don't know you could suffocate the baby on the sleeping bag, right? You just don't know what you don't know. Of course, you don't ever put a baby on a, not sleeping bag, what do you call this thing? Beanbag chairs. You don't put a baby to sleep on a beanbag chair because they can suffocate, right? But if you're young and you don't know and no one raised you to know that, and then your baby unfortunately transitions because you didn't know, you just didn't know. So it's about having the wisdom keepers, imparting that information to the little ones that don't know anything, and we train people as we go. So life affirming, that's very important. And a lot of these really dark things are getting ready to come to light. A lot of them already have. And when you shine the light on them, it gives you a chance to repair it, right? Gives you a chance to help people and to change and become a better people. That's how I look at it. I talked about all that. So this is your vehicle. This is your spaceship. This body you're all walking around in, that's your spaceship, right? So you want to take care of this spaceship because it's really hard to do repairs when you get older. You know, it takes a little bit more time. And if you can keep this body structure in a good thing, it'll last you a really long time. I like Dick Van Dyke. Everyone like him? He said that 94. But you know, he had kind of a hard life, and in about mid-50s, he had sort of a I'm going to change my life kind of moment, and he's been very dedicated. He's gone to the gym, I think, every day since, and he cleaned up a lot of his act, and he's really happy and really interesting, and here you go. And so anybody can shift at any point. It's not a problem. See how I'm doing all the time? I'm doing all right. All right, talked about all that, talked about all that. All right, I just did this to make Stephanie happy. I talked about all that already. Talked about all that. It's a time for variety. It's a time for letting go of rituals, letting go of, I do this at 10 o'clock, I do this at 11 o'clock. I work this one job 40 hours a week. You're going to see a lot more of what we call multiple streams of income, where people are saying, you know what, I really love jogging, so I'm going to, you know, get my, okay, I love working out at the gym, and I'm going to do 10 hours a week. I'm going to train people at the gym. But I also love helping children, so I'm going to be a tutor 10 hours a week. I'm going to do that. And then I'll still do my computer job maybe the other 20 hours. It's that sort of thing. So there's a big shift in how we are going to be and how we are going to do our jobs and how we are going to engage with each other. And we're going to find out we can do it just as well over the internet as we can in a building, in a structure. And you're going to see a whole lot of office buildings get turned into apartments probably, and shopping malls be turned into apartments. But the change is going to be lightning quick, faster than you've ever seen. It's not going to take 100 years for a lot of these things to happen. It's going to happen maybe by the end of this year. You're going to be surprised when you look back. This will be the fastest year you ever had. You're going to go, my goodness, what happened? You know, it's very different. That's why we're here, to make it less shocking. All right, I talked about that too. All right, lightheartedness, you know, so I have to tell a story about that. So, the world will literally reflect back to you the messages that you need to have if you're paying attention. Sometimes it comes back in songs. Sometimes you'll see it on a bumper sticker. So start paying more attention if you haven't been. If you hear it 3 times in one day, you better pay attention. If you hear the word Hawaii 3 times in one day, maybe it's time to go to Hawaii, you know? So look into setting your intention that you want to see it coming back to you, right? So if you're an empath, if you feel the emotions of others, this is a very challenging time for those of you that can feel the pain and misery of others, because there's a lot happening that's not fun right now, a lot. And it's easy to get caught up in that energy. And if you're a frontline worker, you're going to get run down, you're going to get tired, and you're going to need to have some support from your friends and your family, and to try to figure out, well, how do I jump back in there and help people, right? So Stephanie has been doing a lot of helping people figure out plans on getting what they need. But it's been making her sad. You know, she's been kind of sad, right? So was it today, Matthew? Was it today? The lightheartedness thing? That was today, wasn't it?
That was today.
That was today. Where was it? What was it on?
Railroad track.
Railroad track. So we're going over the railroad track. Someone had spray painted the word lighthearted on the little electric box, you know? And she knew that message was for her, that she needed to be more lighthearted. So tonight she's been very lighthearted because she was letting it get to her. And I know some of you are probably feeling that too, like, this is getting old. When's this going to end and how is it going to be different? But you can change it now. You can change your response now. You can dance in your living room, you know, like that Risky Business movie where he slid across the thing in his socks. You know, I've seen that. There he goes, right? But it really is about perspective. And it is a long haul. Some of you may need to sleep 12 hours a day. That's all right. Some of you are going to be up all night like, I've never been this awake in my life. It's the energies bombarding the planet. Some of you, it's going to make you more awake than you've ever been. Others of you are going to be like, I've got to go take a nap. That's it. I'm done. You know? And you're going to notice your food changes. That maybe before you felt like you wanted to eat a lot of meat, and now you can't even look at it. It may be something as simple as sweet potato French fries that you're like, I don't feel like I could ever eat a sweet potato again as long as I live. It used to be my favorite food. As the DNA is shifting and changing, it's different for everyone, and it's going to evolve in a different way. And it's really important that you begin to get really solid in your own structure. Where's your center, right? Where's your na'au? Where are you getting your messages from? And you've got to get really clear on, this is how I want my life to be. This is what I choose for myself. I'm going to try to help whoever's in my family or help my job, or maybe I'm going to switch jobs, but you've got to get really clear on what is it that you choose. Maybe you take a few more risks, not because you want to, but because the environment has created it that way for you and you have no choice. And if so, you just have to take time, if you can, to make a decision. What's next, right? What am I going to do next, right? Would anyone like to know what Stephanie is going to do next? I can tell you. On Tuesday, now this is what we do, we call following guidance. Now Stephanie had a really sweet girlfriend who, during the time of the, what was that called, where they were going to, the Native American lands, and they went across the water. They were going to drill the oil pipeline. I forget that. I forget. Well, anyway, wherever the Native Americans, they were going to drill off their land and do the fracking, and they didn't want them to do it. And so she felt like, I need to go help be a part of that experience, and I feel like I'm meant to help those Native Americans. So her girlfriend got in the car and she drove out there. And she called Stephanie and she said, do you think this is part of my life plan, or do you think I've lost my mind to drive across the country and go, you know, camp out and help out over here? And she checked her life contract and she said, no, it feels right for you, right? So you follow guidance, you know, and sometimes the guidance might be really odd. And you've got to get really clear, and then you ask the universe, please send me messages, please send me information. You know, if you have an idea about you want to buy this house or you want to go take this trip or whatever. So in Stephanie's case, she's got Aria in her head. So, you know, I'm like, okay, there's probably more than likely a very large earthquake going to hit California and hit California soon. And if I, Aria, am out there, then I can help make the earthquake less, right? I can make it not be as big. And Stephanie was like, hold up, Aria, hold up. Are you sending me into an earthquake? I was like, yes, dear, we're going into it. Probably more than that. So here she goes. Tuesday morning, she's going to drive across the country and put her beautiful light out in California. Now, her guidance on this, everybody, is 100% solid, rock solid. She's going to do it. There's no doubt, no waver at all. That's when you know it's divine and from God's source. If you feel like you walk into this house and you say, oh my God, that's my dream home, I'm getting that house, right? Or I met that person. One of Matthew's friends just met, one of his friends just met an interesting girl, and he's like, that's the one, that's the one, she's it, you know? So that level of clarity is going to happen for all of you more and more. And for some of you, it's a simple life. Not everyone's going to have this big thing, I've got to go climb Mount Everest. No,